Nutrient cycling is an essential process in ecosystems. Nutrient cycles involve not only living organisms, but also non-living components. This involves biological, geological, and chemical processes, and thus these nutrient circuits are also known as biochemical cycles. A nutrient cycle can also be referred to as ecological recycling. It is the movement and exchange of organic and inorganic matter back into the production of matter. Energy flow is a unidirectional and noncyclic pathway, whereas the movement of mineral nutrients is cyclic. Mineral cycles include the carbon cycle, sulfur cycle, nitrogen cycle, water cycle, phosphorus cycle, oxygen cycle, among others that continuously recycle along with other mineral nutrients into productive ecological nutrition. This is the transport and transformation of chemicals in ecosystems. We know it as biochemical cycles. The sun, which drives the water cycle, heats water in oceans and seas. Water evaporates as water vapor into the air. Some ice and snow sublimates directly into water vapor, that is, from ice to gas, having no liquid water phase. Evapotranspiration is water transpired from plants and evaporated from the soil. The water molecule, H2O, has smaller molecular mass than the major components of the atmosphere, nitrogen and oxygen, N2 and O2, hence is less dense. Due to the significant difference in density, buoyancy drives humid air higher. As altitude increases, air pressure decreases and the temperature drops. The lower temperature causes water vapor to condense into tiny liquid water droplets, which are heavier than the air. Large concentrations of these droplets over a large space, up in the atmosphere, become visible as clouds. Some condensation is near ground level, and we call it fog. The water cycle, also known as a hydrological cycle, describes the continuous movement of water on, above, and below the surface of the Earth. The mass of water on Earth remains fairly constant over time, but the partitioning of the water into major reservoirs of ice, fresh water, saline water, and atmospheric water is variable, depending on a wide range of climatic variables. The water moves from one reservoir to another, such as from a river to the ocean, or from the ocean to the atmosphere, or by the physical processes of evaporation, condensation, precipitation, infiltration, surface runoff, and subsurface flow. In so doing, the water goes through different forms, liquid, solids, and vapor. The water cycle involves the exchange of energy, which leads to temperature changes. When water evaporates, it takes up energy from its surroundings and cools the environment. When it condenses, it releases energy and warms the environment. These heat exchanges influence climate. The water cycle is powered from solar energy. 86% of the global evaporation occurs from oceans, reducing their temperature by evaporative cooling. Without the cooling, the effect of evaporation on the greenhouse effect would lead to a much higher surface level temperature of about 67 degrees centigrade, that is 153 degrees Fahrenheit, which would mean a much warmer planet. These are charts and tables of the climate of the Palouse region, home to the Washington State University campus and our front yard classroom, Kamiak Butte. We can see how temperature and precipitation combine to deliver freezing rain and snow from December through about March. Plants are mostly dormant in these times because of the temperature block, preventing even photosynthesis from happening. However, in about April, temperatures slide above 45 degrees and plant activity initiates again. Not only does photosynthesis commence, but roots begin to pull nutrients dissolved in the precipitory water through their xylem layers of cambium to energize growth of trees, shrubs, forbs, and grasses. The Palouse is unique in respect to the spring, summer, and fall-time precipitation falling through relatively warm climatic conditions to make the favored conditions of warm precipitation with ample soil nutrients to enable plant growth. We can see the striking difference between the north and south aspect microclimates on Kamiak Butte. They each receive fundamentally the same amount of precipitation, the same macroclimatic conditions, and share the geologic substrate of fractured, folded, and uplifted quartzite. So then why the extreme differences in available water on these aspects separated by only 1,000 meters? This situation is seen mainly in response to photosynthetically active radiation energy, delivery, and timing. On the red line south aspect, the landscape is exposed to solar radiation as water is evaporated from the soil surface and wicked from plants as evapotranspiration. South aspect duff layers are thin, and thereby the nutrient cycling is less than the north aspect microclimates, where these conditions are reversed. The sun still shines on the north aspect, but it is buffered by topography and filtered through multiple layers of tree canopy, understory shrub layers, forbs, moss, and lichen. Evapotranspiration pulls less moisture from these plant communities and from the abiotic features found here. Both aspects stand on the compressed and uplifted quartzite substrate, overtopped by loess soil layers. But the timing of warm precipitation in concert with direct solar radiation creates a striking differential. In ecology and earth science, a biochemical cycle or substance turnover is a pathway by which a chemical substance moves through biotic and abiotic compartments of Earth. These are cycles through the biosphere to lithosphere, atmosphere, and hydrosphere's phases. There are biochemical cycles for the chemical elements of calcium, carbon, hydrogen, mercury, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, selenium, and sulfur. The molecular cycles activate water and silica. Macroscopic cycles, such as the rock cycle, bring these perpetual events into alignment. In some cycles, there are reservoirs, where water persists in oceans or lakes. All these combine within the exchange of energy as we see it pass through trophic levels. Matter and energy move through these cycles seeking equilibrium, a stasis achieving an endless balance within an ever-changing biome. In biology, detritus is dead organic matter, as opposed to living organisms or inorganic matter. However, what specifically is included as detritus varies according to different researchers, with some restricting the term to only non-living particulate organic matter, POM, while others also include dissolved organic matter, DOM, and yet others include the associated microbial decomposers. Detritus is normally colonized by communities of microorganisms, which act to decompose or remineralize minerals. In general, detritus is non-living organic matter. It derives from the Latin word detri, meaning to disintegrate or diminish. In terrestrial ecosystems, detritus typically includes leaf litter and other organic matter intermixed with soil, here known as humus. A large fraction of the elements composing living matter resides at any instant of time in the world of biota. Because the earthly pool of these elements is limited and the rates of exchange among various components of the biota are extremely fast with respect to geologic time, it is quite evident that much of the same material is being incorporated again and again into different biological forms. This observation gives rise to the notion that, on the average, matter and some amount of energy are constantly involved in these cycles. Nutrients are consumed by organisms through what we term as various food chains and ecosystems. These are spread across our planet. Inorganic nutrients are an essential part of food chains. They give completion to the entire cycle of generation, reconsumption, and degradation of food. The chain of generation and degradation of food is a highly organic process. It originates with the photosynthesis that is carried out by plant leaves and ends upon the decomposition of animal waste by microorganisms. The principal matter involved in this process is carbon, which makes the process an organic one. Nutrients are passed on from one organism to the other, including carbon-based compounds such as sugar, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. But the existence, as well as importance, of inorganic compounds not having a carbon basis cannot be denied. The cycle of food for omnivores, like us, starts with plants and photosynthesis. The leaves of the plants generate carbon-based compounds, such as sugars and starch and carbohydrates. Eventually, these are transferred to animals, and in the end, these same sugars are broken down into simpler elements and compounds that are, again, organic in nature. There are numerous elements and compounds that are inorganic in nature, but are absolutely essential for the completion of the aforementioned cycle. Ecosystems are capable of complete recycling. Complete recycling means that 100% of the waste material can be reconstituted indefinitely. Our ability to thrive and survive on this planet relies on inorganic nutrients and other compounds to be extracted from the lithosphere and asthenosphere to be presented into a cycle where plants are not the only source of energy transfer. Parent material determines the nature of the soil in an ecosystem and influences the supply of mineral nutrients. Topography also controls ecosystem processes by affecting things like microclimate, soil development, and the movement of water through a system. Other external factors that play an important role in ecosystem functioning include time and potential biota. Bioelements, or biogenic elements, with bio meaning life, genes meaning beginnings, are these chemical elements that make up the matter of living beings. Similarly, the set of organisms that can potentially be present in an area can also significantly affect ecosystems. Ecosystems in similar environments that are in different parts of the world can end up doing things very differently simply because they have different pools of species present and each with different opportunities for the nutrients they can acquire. The north aspect of Kamiak Butte is strikingly different from the south aspect, primarily because of the direct solar radiation on south aspects, where warm surfaces shade intolerant tree species. Limited organic matter is recycled back to the detritus, where nutrients would otherwise be recycled back into the humus. Plant communities on the north aspect enjoy this nutrition cycling boon as it continuously regenerates energy to plants at all levels, from treetops to shrubs, forbs, grasses, mosses, and lichen, and fungi thriving deep in the substrate. Ecohydrology is an interdisciplinary scientific field studying the interactions between water and ecological systems. It is considered a subdiscipline of hydrology with an ecological focus. These interactions may take place within water bodies, such as rivers and lakes, or on land, in forests, deserts, and other terrestrial ecosystems. Areas of research in ecohydrology include transportation and plant water use, adaptation of organisms to their water environment, influence of vegetation and benthic plants on stream flow and function, and feedbacks between ecological processes and the hydrological cycle. Here we see an oak tree, monarch caterpillar, scarlet tanager, sparrowhawk, and an earthworm, combining to form a circular route known as an ecosystem. Each species interdependent on the previous and the next. These are the factors of energy transformation in the living earth all around us. This energy is here now, has been in effect since time immemorial, and will be retained no matter what the form it may take. An ecosystem is a community of living things and their non-living environment, and may be as large as a desert or small as a puddle. All ecosystems require energy from an external source. This is the sun. Plants need sunlight to photosynthesize and produce glucose, providing an energy source for each plant and for other organisms. The living organisms in an ecosystem can be described as producers, consumers, and decomposers. Producers are the green plants, which make their own food through photosynthesis. Consumers are animals who get their energy by eating other organisms. Herbivores eat plants, carnivores eat herbivores, or other carnivores, and omnivores eat both plants and animals. Decomposers, though, include bacteria, fungi, and some plants and animals. Break down dead plants and animals into organic materials that go back into the soil. These detrivores are critical components of nutrient recycling in every terrestrial ecosystem. This is nature's form of a compost pile. The hydrologic cycle describes the continuous movement of water on, above, and below the surface of the Earth. This flow is altered by ecosystems at numerous points. Transpiration from plants provides the majority of flow of water to the atmosphere. Water is influenced by vegetative cover as it flows over land, while river channels can be shaped by vegetation within them. This is ecohydrology. In terrestrial ecosystems such as forests, deserts, and savannas, the interactions among vegetation, the land surface, the vadose zone, and the groundwater are the focus. In aquatic ecosystems such as rivers, streams, lakes, and wetlands, emphasis is placed on how water chemistry, geomorphology, and hydrology affect their structure and function. Consider the hydrologic cycle of every ecosystem you approach. We have studied the components of geology, the history of how here became here. Where did it come from, and how weathered is the geological substrate that forms the foundations of the land where these plants grow? We have studied the climatic forces bringing temperature, precipitation, winds, and pressure systems to ecosystems. Knowing the topographic features of the landscape shape how weather systems are formed and delivered to the biomes existing in these unique terrestrial slices of our planet. These abiotic factors guide the restrictive environments, creating the plant communities where specific plant species fill a niche to thrive and survive to the ever-changing abiotic and biotic environments they experience. Of course, these conditions come in mass to facilitate wildlife who make this their habitat. All these components are combined with the driving force of the primary energy source of our planet, the sun. The sun is the driving force, causing precipitation to fall as either rain or snow. Consider the landscape receiving 90% of its precipitation as snow, remaining below freezing temperatures for 9 months of the year. Plants existing in these tundra systems will fill a niche needing little available water. They will not support towering forests or multi-layered vegetative communities. Available water can be considered in terms of water warmed as it dissolves nutrients in the soil substrate, where plant roots can absorb it to move it into structures where chloroplasts can instigate photosynthesis and the cycle of plant energy can be bolstered. Of course, this cold climate extreme can be countered with tropical rainforest ecosystems, where virtually none of the precipitation falls in sub-zero temperatures, where sunlight reaches through multi-layered forest canopies, and detritus is continuously layered at the forest floor, where detrivores keep nature's compost pile in constant action. All plants and animals will exist within the confines of their restrictive environments, combining the abiotic and biotic features found there.